So to bring that into this, I'm Elijah Johnson. If you're watching this, you're going to see a playlist of other little interviews that I do. And what I've done is I live in rural Southwest Washington. I used to live in Portland for a bit. And I've interviewed guys running for office and tried to understand local politics and help people get elected. And it's actually worked. I have helped people get elected.
Can you name a person or two?
I don't know if I want to name any names.
Or how many people are you talking?
No. I helped Steve Rader get elected. He was basically a no-name guy, and I gave him a little bit of a platform to talk, and then I made some shorts out of that video about like the stuff that I felt was kind of worthwhile. And it helped him get a little bit more presence. And he won against an incumbent with a history of being well-known in the party. The other guy helped, and I do know for a fact he won because of me. Mm-hmm. Is this guy, Grant Houston, who's city council in Woodland right now. He was a total unknown. In the voters pamphlet that we get every year, like for elections, he never filled that out. So he didn't have a name or a statement or anything. He had like 4 signs, and he was running against somebody who is a well-known person in our city, both politically and socially. And he won by less votes than his interview got in views.
That's close.
So I was just like, I know for a fact people watched that interview and were like, I'm going to vote for this guy, and then did. And that's why he's in office.
Well, good.
So, like, for a rando nobody, I've got a pretty decent track record of stuff.
That's good.
But we met kind of through chance. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And why don't you introduce yourself and talk a little bit about your political history?
Oh, shit. Well, my name's Josh Hill. I've lived in Portland on and off since around the 1980s. Let's see here. I became an activist on the ground after, what was that, like 2020-ish?
I made a bullet list. Would you want me to go through the bullet points?
The bullet points? Sure,
yeah,
why not?
Okay, all right. Josh Hill.
Yep.
All right, so
yeah,
here's what I wrote down, because I'm a vicious, fascist conservative. So Josh Hill, Marine.
Yes.
All right. You were deployed to Fukushima.
Well, I was in Okinawa.
Helping
Helping with the 2011 natural disaster. Yeah, was one of my jobs.
You have active service, not
yes.
combat service, but active service.
Yes,
which is good. I don't really, I don't think there's a theater we should be killing people in right now that's not Mexico.
No,
and we're not doing anything in Mexico that I'm aware of.
That we're aware of.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah.
All right. So that former Marine, corpse.
Yeah, Marine Corps. Yeah.
No. Like you were a corpse briefly.
Corpse? Oh, yeah. I did.
Yeah, but now you're not dead anymore.
Well, it's a good thing.
Yeah, you pulled right through on that.
Yeah.
So, like everyone's saying, what doesn't kill you? I mean, even if it kills you.
I mean, sure.
Street activist.
Yes.
Walk us through that a little bit. What was your any roles you want to talk about with street activism? Some of the goals and times you were trying to do.
Well, let's see. Kind of started with I joined what was called Wall of Vets at the time, and they were basically we were a bunch of people from the branches of the military, so like prior vets who saw a lot of police brutality. We're like, hey, this kind of stuff needs to stop. So maybe we can be negotiators. Maybe we can just form a line and say, hey, stop beating people, whatever it is. We started off doing that for a little while, and then after a little while, I was like, well, what else needs to happen on the streets? And then I noticed that that houseless people were getting treated inhumanely, so I started doing activism for that. And there's a lot of stuff I probably shouldn't talk about that I'm not going to talk about yet.
Look, as someone that has also done things I'm not really interested in sharing on camera, I understand that people might get vindictive in the future and use things against you. And let's not have that.
Yeah.
In a nice recordable sense where someone can go, did you admit to doing this? And you're like, no.
But everything I have done, I am proud of.
Yeah.
And we've always worked pretty much within the law, which is really good, even when it was being used against us. So I'm really happy about that. But yeah, over time, I've just really developed a care for the underdog, whether it's the houseless people, whether it's vets in the street, or just vets that need help, whatever it is, because I have a lot of lived experience in
both of those environments.
Yeah.
And this brings us to, I kind of think why this sort of is a good combination, because I am so callous towards the homeless community.
Yeah.
My mom was homeless for a while. A lot of my family's like transient drug addicts.
Yes.
If you hear someone in a MAGA hat talking about welfare queens, that is my mom.
Mm-hmm.
Like, she straight up didn't put our dads on any of our birth certificates because at the time you would get more welfare if you could tell the state you didn't know who the father was, which was fucked. It was a fucked thing to do. She was a piece of shit. She died in a ditch. She literally died in an actual ditch.
That's sad.
Well,
But
she described being homeless to me a bunch of different times, and none of it was like it was the worst thing.
yeah.
Like, she once gave me a tour of Seattle from the perspective of a transient drug user, and it was super nice.
That'd be very interesting.
I had that. She took me to like a big tree that she would sleep under, and she'd talk about like how, you know, you were dry and calm and people would leave you alone. And then she took me this little spot that was like secluded, but it was like pseudo-industrial. You know, like they had the factories by the water.
Mm-hmm.
So she found a spot where it was like a pebble beach, and it was the lapping of Puget Sound that would just come up. And then some old concrete divider had just been left there. So behind it was like a nice little area.
Mm-hmm.
And she would put her tent there and like just sleep next to Puget Sound. And I was like, so, you know, there are people that pay millions of dollars a year to sleep next to Puget Sound, and you found a way to do it for free. And she said, well, technically they were paying me, because social programs. They're paying me to do this. But what I think is interesting is we both feel that whether I'm callous and whether you're not submissive, just empathetic.
Yes, empathetic. Yeah,
you're
it's a
very
good word.
empathetic. We both feel like it is something that should be addressed. And
Yes, absolutely.
people that need help in those communities should get the help they need.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. And so what I thought was cool is let's start talking about issues that affect us in our areas in a way that can actually affect change. Right? I'm getting people elected. Maybe if you have a concern about something going on in Portland, you want to do something, and, you know, Josh, you did stuff.
Yeah.
And in some cases, it still didn't work. Right?
Some cases.
Yeah.
It's more like it worked small term, but it didn't have lasting results that we were really hoping for. Even when we went to city council and stuff like that, a lot of those plans or proven track records weren't implemented.
And so the hope in both of our sides is that we build a platform that, one, kind of gets past the lefty-righty rhetoric.
Yes.
And into a tangible solution.
Well, you said you grew up kind of Democratic, right? Maybe,
Yeah.
sort of?
No, I was hardline liberal in life as a kid, because when you grow up in a welfare system, right, and you're not old enough to have processed what you've been through yet. You just figure that's the way it should be.
Yeah.
And you see how much money the government has, and you're like, why doesn't everyone? The government should just pay for everybody. It doesn't fucking make sense that they're just not doing this.
Yeah.
And then you start to research it, and you look at how we spend our money, and you go, oh, we absolutely can pay for everybody. We just won't.
Yeah.
And then you're like, well, this is fucked. So then you look into that, like, how come we're not doing it? And you go, oh, it's these like 9 dudes that have been reelected for 75 years. Why is that happening? And then you cycle all the way back, and you find out that of all the political parties, in my case anyway, the only one that said we're Americans and believe in the Constitution was the Republicans in Cowlitz. They gave me like a Constitution, and they're like, America. But when I went to the Democrat meetings, I went to a Democrat rally in Vancouver, and I had the party head in the Democrats at the time go, we don't hate the working class. Which I do understand why he was like saying it. Like, I don't have any, I want to help people.
Yeah.
Right? But like, there's this narrative that I'm a monster. And I think a lot of that comes on both sides.
Yeah, both sides,
From the fact that we're engaging in rhetoric first and not actionable steps. Because no matter what political like group or movement system or like organization that I ever went to when I was trying to find myself, which would have been after you were doing this, because you were with vets immediately.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to get into these programs, and I just meet people who are in these like hen pecking circles. They're just like, so I filed Form 1070B, but they said I needed to file Form 1070A. So we got the signatures and filed Form 1070A 20 minutes before deadline. And then that's how we now up for national consideration. I was like, for what? What is it you're trying to do that you need to do all this work for? And they're like, to be heard at convention. And I was like, for what? Like, I get that you're describing bureaucracy to me. That's not getting shit done.
Yeah. See, I grew up Republican and pretty, not like far right, but definitely very conservative, extremely conservative. And I remember my dad had a bumper sticker on his Jeep that was 3 different colors that said, work harder, millions of welfare depend on you. And so that was the kind of environment that we grew up in. And we were the type of people that worked really hard. Like we grew up logging and salvaging on the mountain, like
Which
Old Growth
is
Fir.
So a Northwest thing to have grown up
Yes.
in. Yeah.
That's
how you know you're a Northwest native if your lifestyle is basically Paul Bunyan's.
I started logging about 6 years old. So, I'm young, but by the time that I retired from the military, I already had about 20 years of work experience, and I retired in my 20s.
Right.
So, but I was Republican. I even voted for Trump in 2016. And then I changed over after I saw a lot of the stuff that happened on the streets and started talking with people that were needed help, a lot of help.
And I think voting for Trump's like the point to sort of delegate or to sort of change. You believe Trump's a fascist.
Yes.
100%.
Yes.
You say words like indigenous peoples, people of color, the houseless community.
BIPOC, yeah.
Right. Like, and that's very Portland of you. I say words like homeless.
Mm-hmm.
And we were talking the other day at lunch, like the etymology of the difference between them.
Yeah.
Like, houseless implies you're exactly where you need to be. You're just outside. Homeless implies you need to be somewhere because you're not at your home. You're not where you're supposed to be.
Yeah.
And it's just interesting. Like, indigenous people is definitely more sympathetic and caring than Indian.
Mm-hmm.
But I say tribe because that's how they define themselves. Like, if you go to the Cowlitz Reservation, it's not indigenous people's sheriff. It's the tribal sheriff. It's the tribal council. And then if you want to get specific, I grew up in Arizona. It's like the Navajo and the Hopis. It's like I'm big on that culture. I do think there's like a hint of that's Americana in its truest sense. But to bring this in, I voted for Trump fucking 3 times. I just voted for Trump again. Mm-hmm. And I'm not here being like MAGA. Because no, I'd have the hat on. I mean, I'm already dressed like this. I'd have the hat on. Let's be real here. But it was this thing we were talking about. And I kind of want to, before we get into the topics that we want to start really covering, and like really explaining how the goal of this is to get people to be civically engaged in an actionable way.
Yes.
Right? Because I don't want guys to just vote for down ticket one party. I don't think you want that either.
No.
I don't want protests to mean nothing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you want that either.
No.
But we acknowledge that there's shit that's got to change.
Yes, absolutely.
And so if we can build a platform to let people showcase some of these issues while letting our listeners or the watchers or whoever you hearing this, giving you a tangible way to take action.
Yeah.
That fucking matters, right? Like, I don't know how many times we've been solicited for donations for some cause and then it's a tax haven for some rich guy.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
We've all been there.
Yes, absolutely.
The difference, I suppose, between the two of us is I smell that because I grew up with a bunch of transient drug addicts.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm not sympathetic to people that just want money from me.
Just to be fair, so we're on the same page. I grew up around a lot of drug addicts. They just weren't inside the house.
See, there you go.
We had 3 drug houses within about 1 block of my location.
And one of the other thing is, like, I'm totally okay with drugs.
Yes.
Like, do as much drugs as you want.
But just don't fuck up everything around you.
Be functional.
Yes.
If you're going to do meth, use it to work overtime. That's all I'm saying.
I mean, like, one of the best things for me for, helping with some of the stuff that happened when I was in the military was cannabis.
Yeah.
I was smoking like $150 worth of weed a fucking week.
And because we found this track record of help, it's like legal recreationally now.
Yes.
Which is great, because
Yes.
I'm not going to get pinched for it.
Just don't drive and do it.
And in Woodland, where I live, it's fucking illegal. There's one town in Washington you just can't smoke pot in.
Just don't get caught.
Well, for one, But you know what's wild is the guy who owns the pot shop is coming to all these city council meetings. I champion for the dude, right? Again, voted for Trump, who is a fascist.
Yeah.
Great. I just need that cut for the edit.
Oh yeah.
But like,
fascist.
Obviously. Voted for Trump. I'm for like conservative, protecting America, whatever. But when I found out this small business was having his rights trampled on by a bunch of people who were appointed and not elected, the Thomas Jefferson in me was like, hey, get your gun. And I was like, maybe later. I have it. I will. But I'd like to think we're not there yet.
No, there's like 10 steps to take.
What's the old adage? There's a nation's fate is decided in 3 boxes, right? The soap box, the ballot box, and the cartridge box. And there's a lot of people that would say that we should be at the cartridge box. And we kind of are murking out CEOs, but in our defense, we have tried a lot of ways to rein those dudes in.
Yes.
I hope that guy never gets catched. I do. I hope he never gets fucking caught. I'm a Henry Ford capitalist, but I am a capitalist. I'm for the free market, but I understand it needs to be free, and everybody needs rights to survive. So
yeah.
And conversely, you're probably a little bit more on the regulation side of this stuff. So
it depends. It depends on the issue and what's going on. Stuff with like healthcare kills so many people. I being one of them.
Oh, that's right. I forget sometimes that you died. We talked about it less than 10 minutes ago, and I was like, oh, yeah.
There needs to be a lot of changes when people don't have access to healthcare, and we spend the most, I think, out of any nation in the world, and we still struggle with proper healthcare if you're not rich. I mean, that's just absolutely astounding. And
again, to take that into a capitalist state, and pro-worker, is I'm like, well, what I see here is a wage problem. And it's like Elon Musk isn't running around going, how am I to afford treatments? Like, no, he's good. So what we have is an earnings problem.
His doctors and nurses probably come in like that, sexy lingerie and are actually professionally trained, but
are actually professional. That's what happened to Michael Jackson, apparently. Or he was killed by Sony. I love conspiracy theories, and they're all fun. But like, okay, so the thing I also want to avoid is we talked about this. I am trying to make it a term, so let's hope we can do it. It's called piss trucking.
Oh yeah.
I don't want anybody to piss truck anybody. So let's explain piss trucking for a minute. It's the analogy.
Take it.
Thank you. The analogy kind of works like this. Your house is on fire, right? And 2 people show up with firefighters. And to keep it politically analogous, one's in a red truck and one's in a blue truck. And the red truck guy has a fire truck full of piss. And the blue truck guy asks and says all the very sensible things. How did you get a fire truck full of piss? You're going to let him use piss to put your house fire out? You know your house is going to smell like piss probably forever. It's going to rot and be pissy. It's very unclean. These are all true statements, and I agree with that guy. I'm going to pick the piss truck because he never said how he's going to put my fire out. So piss trucking, in a nutshell, is complaining without providing solution.
Yeah.
Critique a solution all day, but you have to have them. Mm-hmm. If you're just going to stand up and say Trump is a fascist and then not go, here's why we need to vote for RFK Jr., for example, you're just piss trucking. Yeah. And my litmus test for Trump all year was, I will vote for you if you can tell me why I shouldn't vote for Trump without using the words Trump. You have to tell me why I should vote for you.
If only we'd met sooner.
I know. And I was talking to like some Kamala people earlier in the year, and they were like, well, she's going to give everyone this like housing credit. And I was like, that's cool. We have a program like that in Washington, and it totally works. And then they were like, but it's cringe. And I was like, oh, so I shouldn't vote for her. And they're like, well, no, because you said. And I was like, well, but you're already saying it's bad. And so like RFK for me was the only guy who made a level of sense as to why he should be voting.
And then he got outed.
And then he turned around and was like, you should vote for Trump. And I was like, well, if he says so. Because he was the guy I was going to vote for. Anyway.
Well, the Republican Party outed him pretty much, right? Like they forced him to concede.
The Democrat Party is a corporation, and they act exactly like one, which means they cater to their investors,
of course,
not their workers.
Yeah, both sides, yeah.
Yeah. And so like that leads us full circle.
To piss trucking.
But more to like the balancing act, right? How do we get people to be angry about what they should be angry about without making them aimless.
Yeah, like have a funnel for your emotions or frustrations, or just you want to see change. Here's how I do something about it.
How do we address a problem while understanding that problem, while giving the average person a tools to do it?
Yeah.
That isn't, hey, just give me money, or isn't vote blue no matter who.
Or maybe
because if I could count the amount of times that I learned that a dead guy won an election who was a Democrat, it would be twice. But it is weird that it's more than once.
You can also do what my friends do. Like instead of voting for the dead person, they just vote for my service dog.
Well, it's better than
He's cuter.
Right. And see, that kind of shit is like funny, but the practicality of it is.
I know.
Exactly. See? And then we're back in the whole system's broken. And my take on it is broken because you don't use it and the bad people use it and rule through absentia.
That's
like
one reason, yeah.
As pissed as people are at Nancy Pelosi, and you should be pissed at her, and she does do insider trading, and she is a bajillion-year-old crone who should not be where she is.
But don't take that hammer to her husband.
San Francisco won't stop voting for her. I don't know why that. I don't live there.
Yeah.
Right, for one. But this is, to an extent, piss trucking. I'm not giving you who you should vote for. I'm not giving you tangible action. I'm just bitching.
Yeah.
So, like, let's turn this, where I'm mad, you're mad, into, like, a thing.
Yes. Like action, something that's actionable.
Right. So that brings us to some
or
of the
educational.
stuff we wanted to talk about, right?
Yeah.
So what was the big thing that you were like, you know what, we could use this platform to start exploring right away? You were saying it was the houseless, the homeless.
Yeah. So let's just, why don't you just send me some questions and I'll just give you some answers.
Sure. Let's start with one of the things I thought was really interesting. If you were in America the last couple of years, you heard that Portland decriminalized drugs.
Yes.
And I was talking to you about it because you do have activism like ties here.
Yes.
You're saying that's not the whole story.
Not even close.
So give us the whole story.
I don't remember which measure it was, so I'm going to do a little research on that.
That's fine.
But basically,
You know what? I will put right now the measure. It'll come up on screen.
Yes. So the measure was to decriminalize drugs, but then also take steps for the people who are quitting said drugs to have a place to basically get help, get aid, have a program, have ties, have actionable steps that they could take to get off the drugs and then be able to do something about it, get aid, basically.
Right.
And what happened was they decriminalized drugs and then they didn't take the actionable steps to give those people aid. So all you had was decriminalization of drugs with no further steps taken that the people voted for, that the people paid tax money for, that they allocated funds for, and it was used improperly.
So do you know what it got used for or how it got used?
I do not. I'd have to do research on that, but
That's fine.
But that's basically the biggest thing that Portlanders were pissed about was that it's decriminalized, but then there was nothing to help heal the wounds that were done after, with the drugs.
Well, and that's that. The other thing that ties into like the homeless population as a whole, right? If you're in Ohio and you keep getting arrested for doing meth,
yes,
and you find out they just decriminalized it in Oregon, guess where your train ticket's about to be? It's Union Station. Like you're on the way. They will bother you, and you could do meth out here. And if you make and sell meth in Kansas, you probably put two and two together, and you're like, I should probably go to Portland.
But here's the thing, though. Like a lot of people don't know about the drugs here. They are extreme.
Are they good?
They're fucking dangerous and they kill people left and right. There's a lot of activism that's done towards Narcan because there's a lot of overdoses. Like you'll purchase meth and then it'll have fentanyl in it. Or you purchase other drugs and it'll have fentanyl in it.
Right.
And the amount of fentanyl varies and you just need a microscopic amount to overdose on it. So, you may get drugs, but then next thing you know, you are overdosing and may not have any aid or may not be near people who can take care of you or resuscitate you. And then a lot of times you just want to get high and then someone stops your high and so you start swinging at the people that's giving you Narcan. It's not like a perfect come over here and just get high situation.
No. Please don't, by the way, migrate across the country to do drugs in the street. That shouldn't be a life goal for anybody. It was a life goal for my mom. It should never be anyone's desires.
I mean, I totally understand why people want to take drugs, especially if you're on the streets.
Right, yeah.
Or just a human being.
I like to say a lot of people don't have a drug problem, they have a drug solution.
There you go.
And the problem is everything else. But one of the things I have talked about this up and down, even in Southwest Washington, when it comes to the homeless population, is, and this is being sympathetic, right? Like, it is the belief that there's a chunk of this population of homeless people that are people that are just down on their luck.
Yes, absolutely.
And I don't think in anyone I've talked to, no matter how hardline conservative they come, that there's a person out there that doesn't want those people to get help.
Yes.
The question starts to become, how do we make sure that those people are getting the help and not the transient community that's here to recreationally do meth?
So there's some steps that have been taken by Portlanders recently. One is that we changed our government system. We have more diversity throughout it. We have multiple choice ranked voting. One of the biggest parts of our most recent election, which happened, I believe, a month or so ago, was houselessness was one of the top priorities.
Yes.
Both for pretty much all candidates.
Well, it's everywhere, and it's clearly not great.
And
there's 3 I can see right now.
Yeah.
Like right behind you, there's a guy on a tent. I think we have footage of the tent, but I might not use it because I don't want to out anybody's sleeping time. Then there was a dude sleeping in a gazebo, and I'm staring at an RV.
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
And I'm really happy that they have a place to stay.
Yes. Again, nobody wants these people.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want them to be just set on fire and burned down.
Exactly, which was happening. Yeah.
I start to feel some kind of way when I'm driving up Marine Drive and there's all these ramshackle houses being built. And I was like, that's premium real estate. Like, there's a point at which I don't work 9 hours a day plus commute an hour each way to live in a house worse than you built for free on the side of the road.
Yeah.
That's upsetting for some reason.
But to get back to what we were talking about is, people are making a change through their vote, which is really good. We've been talking to the city council for about a decade about these kinds of things. There's been a lot of trial and error, mostly error. People were getting angry at the way people were getting treated with the unethical sweeps, and that was wasting hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars of taxpayer money for basically no solutions.
Okay, we were at lunch, and you were talking a little bit about the sweeps. Can you dig into those a bit more?
Yes.
Okay.
So they are very expensive. We can look into it and get the numbers up on the links, but basically it's taxpayer funded, was my understanding, and the average sweep maybe costs, I don't know, $10,000 to $60,000. I don't know. It's a lot of money per sweep. And what would happen is there's a group of people that are houseless people, and maybe they have a lot of trash because they literally don't have a location to get rid of the trash. Portland took away the trash cans, so they don't have a place to get rid of the trash. So then trash builds up, and then they get marked. They'll have this green piece of paper that basically says, if you're not gone by this date, then we're going to go and forcibly remove you. Mm-hmm. And so what happens is that date comes, they bring a truck over there, they'll clean up the trash, they'll throw it in this giant truck, and they'll hit a lot of camps on that time frame and during that day. And then they'll go and say, you have to move your encampment. So they'll physically make them move the encampment. So then they move it down like a block. And then the same thing happens again. It's not good for anybody. House people can lose medications. They can get stuff stolen. They can whatever. Get treated, roughhoused, also that sort of stuff. But then they just move a block down the street. So basically the trash is picked up and these people are forcibly removed. A bunch of money is spent and we're back to ground zero. Well,
and that was one of the things you brought up, was people losing medication, technology. Yes. And the thing where we definitely do align is, again, the people that can benefit from help should get help.
Yes.
I don't think that there's anybody in the world that's outside of that. So when there are people that are falling through the system that are trying to do what they can, mm-hmm. and then they're getting swept.
Yes.
It resets them to zero.
Yes.
And so now they have to start wherever they were in their journey. They have to start over. Mm-hmm. And the city just burned
a bunch of money,
20 grand, we'll say.
Yeah.
Again, up to 100 we've heard, as low as 10. So it is a range. And I also think that cost depends on the size of the encampment you're sweeping.
Yes, how many trucks, how long, they'll hit, blocks and blocks. It depends on what the length of the sweep is.
Spend $500 on a dumpster, and then $1,000 on some plywood plastic sheets.
I got to cut in here real quick. Speaking about dumpster, so I was working with a nonprofit to see, hey, there's this whole entire stretch of area, it's like the 205 corridor, I believe it was, where there's a bunch of houseless people with tons of trash, and they wanted to get rid of this trash. They legitimately wanted to get rid of it, and there was no place to put it. So this nonprofit, we put together this whole program of like, okay, how much is it going to cost to get a dumpster site? How much is it going to cost to get Solve involved, which is basically they'll go and get volunteers to help us. And so can we get city funding and stuff like that? Basically, it cost us several $1,000s to be able to get a dumpster because the city wouldn't properly help us and help fund it to clean up the streets. There were not proper programs to go and help get rid of the trash on the streets after Portland took away all of their receptacles and everything else like that. And so what we did is we spent weeks working with the houseless saying, hey, we're going to be coming through this area as volunteers. We want to respect this. We know this is an area that we live. If we give you some trash bags, can you go ahead and just clean up the area, and then we'll just come by and take care of them for you? And every single person that we talked to, hundreds of them, were ecstatic about it because we treated them fairly. We treated them like human being to human being. And we got rid of thousands and thousands and thousands of pounds of trash.
So they were actively like working to...
They did most of the work for us. We just picked up the bags. They were so happy to help because they did not have to have this trash in front of their place. But it cost us a lot of money because the city
doesn't have a system.
Does not have a proper system at that point in time. I think this was 2022 we did that.
Right. Well, and then one of the things that we were talking about too is like the population spirals because we see this in, I'll just explain how Woodland handles it, right?
Okay.
Woodland's population is handled because if they find someone who's like camping outdoor for a while, the police roll up on them like immediately.
Okay.
If one person is doing it, they're there.
Yeah.
Then the police go, do you need help or are you going somewhere? And yeah, I get that there's definitely like an insinuation to what they're saying.
Yeah.
But from my perspective, you're telling someone that just wants to do meth in the street, go, or I'm going to arrest you.
Yeah.
And then you're also talking to someone that might actually need assistance. Let's help you get that. And to our credit, and this is, I don't want to like slander the town at all. We have a really great food bank and we have a really good charity system. And it's like last year, I heard people speak at city council about how to get more affordable housing for people that are down on their luck.
Good.
We were putting folks up in like our local hotel. So we were paying out of pocket through a charity to make sure people weren't homeless.
Yeah.
It's not that we didn't care, it's that our solution is ridiculously aggressive, right? But the thing I want to say is when people find out that a city like Portland cares, they ship their homeless here.
Yes.
And so,
well-known fact.
Right. And so the thing that I think is really especially important, if you're in the Northwest at all, is Portland doesn't have Portland's homeless problem. Portland has America's homeless problem because they end up in Portland.
Yeah, one of the cities.
End up in San Francisco.
Yes.
And so, like, for all the good work that Portlanders do, and you guys do good work,
a lot of activists.
You're taking on everybody's problem.
A lot of them,
and
yeah.
You are getting paid nothing for this.
Yeah.
The federal government is in no way involved in what is, again, Jeffersonian guy here, straight up a United States issue.
Yeah, it's national for sure, 100%. It's a side effect of capitalism.
Right.
And to be more clear, we don't have a lot of social constructs that help people when they are down on the luck or disabled. Like, it can take it to see.
Well, we have SSDI. And why don't you tell us just how great of a system that is to work with?
Oh, God. Okay. So, I was down on my luck, so to speak.
Yeah.
I got out of the Marines on disability, and it was a laughable amount. I was unable to work. My energy level was about 1 out of 10. My ability to work was a 1 out of 10. My ability to eat and maintain my weight was about a 2 out of 10.
Yeah.
And I got pennies on the dollar for disability from the Marines because of judicial stuff. It's really hard to get a proper disability when you're VA disability. And so I was also applying for SSDI to get money, to like be able to afford my healthcare because I had a lot of healthcare debt, and my parents were the reason at that point in time that I was not houseless. So I applied for SSDI and got denied, which usually takes months. It can take up to like 5 months to get the denial. So then you apply again, takes about another 5 months. You apply again, takes about another 5 months, and then you're like, well, fuck, I need a lawyer. So you go get a lawyer, and it's done off of percentage of your winnings so that you don't have to pay up front.
Yeah, it's I had to deal with a wrongful termination suit once. It's contingency is the word.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, what a wonderful word in law.
So at this point, I was racking up a lot of medical debt. We're talking like, I think tens of thousands of dollars. And I ended up getting a diagnosis for my ailments. And part of that was done through a world-renowned doctor over at the Mayo Clinic. I had a lot of help getting to the Mayo Clinic. And even with the letter from a world-renowned doctor, from my counselor, from a VA primary care provider, and all these people who had known me for a long time, family, friends, and everything else, I had to go to court. So at this point, I am nearing a 2-year period of trying to get A, disability ratings,
Right.
and B, get health care.
Okay.
So I'm living off my parents, and they're sustaining the weight of my food, housing, all that sort of stuff. And even in that situation, where my situation was dire enough that I got the Oregon State Senator involved, Ron Wyden, it still took about 2 years with Medicare to get approval.
Now, you're not a guy trying to scam the system. You are.
Fuck
And
no.
let me check my notes here. I just wanted to go back to this. You're a deployed Marine?
Yeah, I was over in Okinawa. Yes.
Okay. So the government paid millions of dollars to train you.
A lot of money. Yeah,
Right.
I wouldn't say millions, but a lot. Yeah.
Well,
I was an engineer. Yes.
Yeah. Then we sent you over to a dangerous radiation zone.
Yeah.
Then you came back. Now, did you get hurt in like a 4-wheeler accident?
No, I needed brain surgery.
Okay. Did you get hurt in like a 4-wheeler accident?
No.
Well, what's going on? Why you need brain surgery so bad?
I had a cyst that was putting pressure on my spinal column, and it was also putting pressure and somewhat separating the hemispheres of my brain.
Right.
So
you
it was,
signed up to die for our country and then got a little sick, and then we took 2
Yeah.
years.
They tried getting me out of the military with 20% disability and 0% DOD, which means basically $200 a month with no medical insurance.
It's that, right?
Yeah, that's one of the reasons we see so many vets on the streets and why too many of them are houseless.
So, okay, so we've been piss trucking for like 25 minutes.
Yeah.
I just said. I want to be aware of the irony of the
But
situation.
there are ways to handle the system.
And that is where we're going to get into, right? Because
Yeah.
this exists just as a hello for what it is we want to talk about.
Yeah.
Going forward, the first big issue I think we want to explore is homelessness in the Northwest at least, but definitely just in Portland.
Yeah.
So we're going to start talking, if we can, to people that work with them, other volunteers, people leading programs, and try to get folks a better understanding of like the more holistic picture that we're dealing
Yeah. Like, what's Poland going to do about it? Like, we just voted in a bunch of new people.
Right.
What are the plans?
And then conversely, because I do know some of these folks that are up and down the I-5, we can go into those communities and say, hey, how are you addressing it? Are you seeing successes or failures? I know one of the things that happened in Vancouver was in Vancouver, I'm in Washington, you're in Oregon.
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
Yes.
So in Vancouver, we employed these like tiny home communities sort of everywhere. They're like these little micro sheds. With
Yes.
We'll definitely get footage when we talk to somebody there. But apparently they have like a 30% success rate of getting people out of those and into like actual housing and jobs.
That seems pretty good.
It is really good. Denver figured this out. I think I'll put the thing on the screen. But they did like a just give money to homeless people like plan. They're like, if you really need money, we'll just give it to you and see what happens. And they tracked it as an experimental program. And they come to find out that it was like 50% of people, if you actually give them assistance that helps, will just get back on their feet. Right? Like,
A lot of people want to.
it almost doesn't even matter what you do, but if you're doing it like proactively, it does help. Which counterpoints to the sweep issue being something that actively hinders that.
Yes.
And it exacerbates a problem that you guys have in Portland because you're dealing with everybody's problem.
Yes.
And this is something we found in Cowlitz County because they were putting people. One of the guys who was running for commissioner, Steve Rader,
Okay.
I interviewed him, and he works with this church, and he was helping out the homeless community up there. He was putting guys on buses, like to get them back home, because they were not from Longview. They didn't live in Washington. And he's like, "Look, I'll take you to the bus station, help you out. Where do you live? Where are you from?" And he's like, "I was buying tickets to California and Idaho and Seattle, and why are they here?" And so he's like, "I was driving into the bus station. I'll ask them, why are you here?"
Yeah.
And he would get stories like, well, they would find out that Longview had a program, and so they just put these guys on buses.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
the goal is, okay, let's explore this.
Yeah.
Let's start talking in tangible ways that we can help normal people get involved. And then lastly, and this is to my point on the civic end, to your point, let's find out a way that the average person can do something.
Yes.
And that the thing that they're doing is real.
I actually have a couple of short answers.
Let's go.
There are some very amazing nonprofits in Oregon.
Can you name one?
One of them is Street Roots. They are very well known.
Oh, they do the paper.
Yes, they do the paper.
I love Street Roots.
Street Roots is amazing.
Can I give money to Street Roots now?
Yes.
Will the link be in the description?
Yes.
Okay.
They are amazing. Another one is PDX Saints Love. They are in a very rough neighborhood, but
Okay.
the lady there, I haven't talked to her in a little while, but I used to do activism with her. And she is absolutely beloved by the houseless community. And that means something because obviously you need to be distrusting when you're on the streets a lot of times because you've been burnt so many times, right? But if every single person that you talk to in that area who has been served by her says she's amazing, that says something. And so those are two organizations I think are absolutely amazing. There's a lot of activists that absolutely love working with the houseless too. You'll probably run into them if you do work with PDX Saints Love or Street Roots.
So we'll put PDX Saints Love, Street Roots. They'll be in the description of this video.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to or care about the houseless issue in Portland at all, and you want to do something, but you're not sure what, and you're mad about it, or you're frustrated, or you're sad, however it makes you feel, you want to see change, there'll be a link below. As someone who lived in Portland for a couple years, I will espouse to the journalistic integrity of Street Roots.
Yes, they are amazing. They do not give two fucks
As
about
a paper, they're fantastic.
Yes.
Their activism work, I don't know anything about. But I know the fact that they employed homeless people as like an army of paper boys, which is brilliant.
We reached out to Street Roots when we were doing that trash cleanup.
Yeah.
And it was so cool because a lot of the people that are in Street Roots, some of them are houseless or previously houseless. And so they're able to make that connection with just talking to someone who's been in the shit, right?
Yeah.
And they were a very powerful medium for us to be able to go and communicate with some of the people and say, hey, we really care about you. We want to help clean up the trash. And they would basically get us an entrance to the doorway, so to speak.
Yeah.
And so our voices could be heard and we could be ethical and compassionate and caring. And it's because of people like organizations like Street Roots that we were able to do those types of work.
And, the other side of that coin is, and this is where I lean in, we're going to have to get into this because this is the bureaucracy end that sucks.
Yes.
We're going to have to make long, boring emails to people's offices
Yes.
to get them to come on the show to go, you're right, the sweeps are a big, bad problem. But the thing about that level of civic engagement is I will give you direct contact for people whose job it is to work with the public and solve these problems. So you'll know exactly who to email instead of getting mad on Facebook.
Right.
If you get mad at that guy directly, shit changes. And I do mean this. I interviewed Joe Kent, and I watched him take a talking point that I gave him and start using it.
Mm-hmm.
Because it turns out no one had just talked to him before that was like more Democrat than he was. He's like a hardline MAGA Trump guy. He has the hat. I'm not that hardline. But I was like, you got to calm people down and realize that like if someone's saying words like civil war, like they're calling for a lot of violence. Like there are good people in both counts here,
Yeah.
And so then I watched him go on like national platforms and sort of be a little bit more centrist about stuff. Whether that was directly by me or not, but if we can get in contact with people that do have platforms or authority, and I can get you in contact with them, or we can get them here, vaguely, to explain
Right
yeah, exactly, to explain how to start to use the system to make things work. We can get better outcomes from this system.
Basically civic engagement.
Civic engagement in very tangible ways. I don't want this to be a conversation about national problems unless, specifically about Portland's homeless, it kind of is.
Yes.
Which is really interesting.
It is.
It's a Portland issue because you guys are the funnel for a national problem that everyone exports to Portland, And And in an environmental sense, it's how we export all our slave labor on those batteries to like the Congo. Do you know?
I did not know that.
The biggest lithium deposit in the world is in Nevada.
Not surprised.
We're not mining it at all. It's not even trying. Because in the Congo, you can get a 15-year-old with a pickaxe to mine it or be shot with a Kalashnikov for, I think, like 11 cents a pound, which is just cheaper than we're going to do it in Nevada.
Unless you use our prison force, which is the only legalized form of slavery in America.
You know what? Let's since we're getting to this part of the podcast,
Let's simmer that down.
No. Actually, maybe we boil it a bit. But
okay. Okay.
But the thing is, let's talk about, this isn't just a homeless podcast.
Yes.
Right? I mean, don't get me wrong. We're going to talk about that.
Yeah.
But like, there's a lot of other stuff that we know affects everybody, and we both care about the little guy in our own way.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a lot of topics. This is just like a spitball hour of like, you had your dreams. What's our shopping list for stuff we want to try to get in the nitty gritties of affect change on?
Well, we are getting near Christmas, so maybe it's like a Santa list too.
You know what? I played Santa at my local kids charity event thing.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, our community put together like a Christmas day for kids.
Were you like the
brought
youngest Santa around?
Well, it was a lot of beard stuff.
Oh.
So I was mostly just a nose and some glasses, and then it was a lot of costume.
Okay.
It's the 1 month a year it's okay to be fat.
True.
Rest of the year, everyone's like, ew. And then for 1 month, they're like, hey, can you be Santa? And you're like, yeah. And they're like, cool. But then like in January, fucking do something about it.
Oh, that's New Year's. That's a whole new.
Yeah.
Whole new
And they're
thing.
like, but if you're skinny in December, we will be mad.
No cookies for you. Actually, no extra cookies
Trim
for
down
you.
until June, and then start putting the weight on. It's the sad plight of American Santas.
So get back to prison labor.
Okay, the homeless community is one we definitely want to talk about.
Yes.
You were saying prison labor, prison reform.
Yeah. Oh my God, that's a whole thing. Yes.
I wonder if we can.
Oh, that'd be interesting.
We'll see what we can do.
That's gonna be a big bucket of worms, and I love that.
I want to do entrenched power. I want to start dealing with people that seemingly get reelected for no reason, or have been around for a long time, or maybe don't have their jobs because they should.
We might have to pick like specific cases on that.
Oh, that'll be how we do it.
Very specific, because that's a whole.
And then while we
umbrella.
do that, we can, in my end, we can start helping people with campaigns against those guys.
Ooh.
Because this happened in America that I thought was interesting. It's like the worst intentioned, biggest success ever.
Yeah.
So, a bunch of conservative women got real mad that their schools were turning their kids trans, right?
Wait,
Like,
is this like?
This is broad
Is this like a conspiracy theory? Like when Obama turned the water,
this is broad.
made the water turn the frogs gay?
That's a conspiracy fact, but we'll get neither here nor there. Yeah, it was like a conspiracy theory of like MAGA moms who are all like, stop transing our kids.
But you need surgery for that.
Well, they follow libs of TikTok.
Oh,
It's the
actually,
whole
no.
thing.
No, anyway. Yeah, okay.
So anyway, they come together and they decide that the problem is the school boards. This is what they figure out. This is their conclusion. They go, it's the school boards who are in charge of it.
Okay.
Again, I see your face.
Yeah. Yeah.
I said poorly intentioned.
Yes.
We're going to get to the outcomes here.
Okay, I want to hear this.
So they start running national election campaigns for school board races because they find out that like nobody's involved. And again, if the schools are bad, it's because nobody's involved. Really, that's a lot of this. They win 95% of the races they get involved in. And their group is called Moms for Liberty. So if Moms for Liberty rolls into a school board meeting and they're like, you guys are done, they fucking carry water.
Yeah.
So if we're going to start affecting change on those issues on the bureaucratic level by helping people get into those spots, we need to be a Moms for Liberty, but for something a little bit better intentioned about an issue we know more about.
It was a completely different name.
No, I mean, that one's good. It's got brand name value, right? I could be Moms for Liberty. They won't ordain us.
But you need a sex change for that.
Nah, I'm good. I'll just identify. That's how it works.
Ah, well.
Gender is identity. It's not tangibility. Agree to disagree on that one.
It's just complicated. I'm not touching that one.
How Portland of you. But okay, so prison reform.
Yes.
Wage adjustments. That's something I want to talk about.
We also need to pick a very specific focal point on that.
Right, because Washington's got super high minimum wage.
Yeah, versus, the federal poverty level.
Is Oh, Jesus. You're right.
Try living in Portland on the federal poverty
It's
level.
literally not possible.
I
We
mean-
were talking about teacher salaries in Oregon.
Oh, God.
Which is like education and school performance.
Yeah, I think we said what it was like average of $50,000
$22.50 was the average
hourly wage.
for a Portland teacher.
Somewhere right around there, yeah, which
which is good money in rural Georgia.
It's good in, the South.
It's shit in inner city Portland.
When we have prices that are somewhat comparable to Seattle. Pretty comparable.
Right. Well, again, Intel, Nike, Portland's a big place.
It is. And
Oregon's
expensive
a good economy.
as shit.
Oh, I want to talk about Greater Idaho.
Oh. Ooh.
It's a funny thing, but it's also sad, and it's both of those at once.
So this is like our Christmas list, like
This is what we're making it
it's
now.
gonna one at a time, obviously over a period.
like years. This is so I've been thinking a lot about this, guys. I like pro wrestling a lot because I'm a giant fucking MAGA Trump conservative. Anyway, I like pro wrestling a lot, and this guy Cody Rhodes left pro wrestling. Like he left the WWE, whatever. He left that.
Yeah.
And he went online and he made this like list. This is where I want to be at. This is who I want to wrestle.
Mm-hmm.
And in doing it, he like revitalized the indie wrestling scene.
Okay.
But it's also important to have a list.
Wait, India.
Independent.
Independent. Okay,
Yeah.
independent. Okay.
It's also important to have a list so we can sort of stay on topic of the things we want to be achieving, because that's how you get civically minded in the bureaucratic sense, right? Everyone just piss trucks you all day and then makes you file a bunch of random forms, and 9 hours later you forget why you came to the DMV.
But
and then
you do-
leave and you never have a boat license.
And then your head hurts from beating it against a brick wall and having nothing done.
Exactly. So, kind of stay on that.
Yeah.
Homeless, prison reform, workers' rights or wage adjustments in some capacity, school and education. Do we need to do environmental stuff? I think where we live, it's pretty good.
It could always be better, but it's definitely. We have the whole global warming thing going on too, so that's a whole.
That's not something we don't live in the part of the world where that's a thing we can touch.
That's really true. So yeah,
Unless you want to start trying to get people to bomb China, I don't think we're going to adjust global problems.
I think it's a lot more
They
complicated.
make 33% of the pollution. I mean, it's an existential crisis.
they still
bombing
use
China.
coal mines regularly over there too. Coal for fuel.
Again, right? And if you bomb them,
Well,
they'll be dead.
that's the problem.
But
Change the policy. Don't murder the civilians trying to fucking live.
you sound like a Marine. Anyway, okay. So workers' rights, homelessness, education, Greater Idaho. You want to cover vet stuff? I know you're saying the VA is a thing. Is that something we can get people to tangibly adjust here, or is it more like you got to?
That's a big national area. Actually, here we do have one of the best VA setups. We have one of the best VA hospitals in the nation, even though I did go into the ICU from some stuff. Not going to get into that. But regardless, I'm very thankful for that. And so compared to a lot of the other parts of the nation, we have it pretty damn good here. And that stings.
And we'll try to build a platform for new people to get elected. Because that is something that I'm actually had success on, doing something like this.
Yeah.
And if we want to adjust in the Portland area, maybe that's something we could do.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not trying to help you be governor. We will, if you're cool. But I'm more interested in I want to help you be alderman, right? I want to learn about county commissioner seats. I want to help you be a city councilman, because no one is doing this. And that means that the only voices you hear are the voices that get supported by the big parties. And then you're back into the piss truck problem of all.
Yeah, both parties forget about the people most of the time.
Yeah. And I'm fortunate where I'm at to have a congressman that is really cool. So we have Marie Lusenkamp Perez. I don't know if you've heard about her.
Okay.
She just won her second term. Democrat.
Mm-hmm.
Small business owner. Mom of a kid that's in daycare. So, she's a new mom.
She's busy.
She is. Congressman. But she introduced a bipartisan bill to force Congress. It's an amendment to the Constitution proposed to force Congress to pass a balanced budget every year.
Ooh.
See, we like that, right? Our senator in Washington is Patty Murray. 40 years she's been in Senate longer than I've been alive. She is head of appropriations. So her job is to unbalance the budget through vicious spending.
That sounds like the government in general. Because if you don't spend, your allocations and you get fewer resources next year.
That's just Washington. I have 2 people that are going to bump heads on one idea that foundationally is good.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So it's like, how do we help more people be Gluesenkamp-Perez's? You know, what does a Marie Gluesenkamp-Perez for inner city Portland look like, and how do we help them in their quest to become that?
Mm-hmm.
So that's what we want to use Balancing Act for.
That was actually one of the talking points too, was government spending, of course, in Portland.
Yeah, actually, Portland government spending is. We already talked about it with the sweeps versus programs, and
It's
so
like here's your money, just throwing it out behind you.
So that's the point, right?
Yeah.
How do we maintain the balancing act of political activism and civic engagement?
Yeah.
Because one is fiery, but often doesn't get the results you want long term, and one is incredibly boring and no one wants to do it, but it does yield eventually if you do it right.
Yeah, and one of the things that I ran into working on the streets and stuff like that was I was able to help some people make some differences. Some of it was very traumatizing, but also I did not feel that the things that I did had a lasting effect for enough people.
Right.
It felt like I was someone basically would get shot, right? And then you just like, here's a little Band-Aid. I hope this helps. But you may be okay today, but what about tomorrow?
Right. And so conversely, getting a guy elected is a long, boring process of stupid oorah garbage. But then once they're there, they have check signing power for the county for 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
And that can mean a lot of things.
Yeah.
So how do we get that balancing act of like getting people involved versus actually getting long-lasting solutions? Street Roots, linked below, is both of those things. That's a great organization.
Yes, they're amazing.
How do we build a platform that people can come on to help the local guy? And how do we take that sort of fiery rhetoric and political involvement that everyone kind of has and maintain that balancing act of let's keep it local where it's tangible and we can do something?
Yes.
As much as I'd love to debate about climate change for 3 hours, it's not going to change anything in either direction. And nothing we do short of shooting the president is going to have an effect on climate change. I don't even know if that would, but like, you see what I'm saying? Like, how do we adjust that at all?
Or at least be a part of a force, something.
Right, yeah. Like, I could recycle more, I guess. I live in the woods, though, so there you go. But anyway, this is Balancing Act. This is what we're going to do.
Sure, why not?
Right, and
Sounds
then
fun.
Along the way, you'll be nice and liberal, and I love that. And I'll try to be more moderate conservative, because I think that's fun. I'm somewhere along the lines of like a light Republican libertarian. I don't socially identify to any party, because I think a good idea can come from anywhere.
Yeah.
I'm an atheist who thinks Jesus is a good person. I don't know what you want me to do with that, but like, that's where I'm at on the spectrum. But conversely, I don't think the Jan 6 guys went far enough. I mean, if you're gonna go storm the Capitol, like, commit.
Well,
right?
if they had gone much farther, they would all be dead.
Oh yeah, I'll put that headline on because you showed me that article.
Yes, they would have been.
They were ready.
Puddles.
Oh, so let's be glad they didn't. But conversely, if you're gonna go that level of nuts,
there have been a lot fewer MAGA.
Go nuts is all I'm saying. Because if the government's scared of the people, they're gonna work in your best interest. Theoretically.
Not historically.
Not historically.
The Watts Rebellion.
Oh my God.
Just throw that out there.
Or the Pinkertons and the Union strikes. Yeah.
But CEOs.
Hey, they walk down streets sometimes.
They do.
I'm probably not for much longer.
I gotta say something. So one of the best comebacks I saw about the article with the CEO was that his application had been denied because of prior lead poisoning.
I saw somebody use AI. Apparently the company was using like AI to deny people claims.
Yes.
So someone used that AI to write a claim denial for having been shot. And then it's like this long page. And then someone responded with using AI to write a denial to an appeal. I'd be more solemn about it if he wasn't paid $20 million a year to deny healthcare coverage.
I'm wondering though what could be done before we get to that point. Before that point had gotten to where, a CEO gets assassinated.
How do we fix healthcare? How can the average person be involved?
That's something I know that I have no clue how to do, but I'm very curious about what could have been done beforehand to prevent something like that happening, where people are actually fucking cared for properly.
I'm of the position that while people are busy, I'm of the belief that everyone wants to be political.
Mm-hmm.
We care about stuff like the I-5 bridge, the Willamette River, the homeless community, how well our schools are doing. Like, this stuff everyone cares about.
Yeah, having money in your pocket so you're not worried about being on the streets
The
next
price
paycheck.
of rent and groceries versus
Yes.
how much you're getting paid, right?
Yes,
like, we all
absolutely.
care about all that shit.
The poverty level, yeah.
Yeah. And at the same time, I don't think anyone wants to deal with just like the words Democrat and Republican all day.
Boring.
Yeah, like how do we do things that make this better here?
Yeah. We are more than just a party label.
Yes. And so like that's the balancing act.
Yes.
Cool. I feel good. You feel good?
I feel great.
All right, good.
I'm-
Tell me this isn't a butthole.
Like, what is this thing?
Just tell me it's not a butthole. That's all I need you to say.
It's not a butthole, but it looks like a butthole.
It's a butthole.
And it's apparently maintained. Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, that's why it has all the moss on it.